So the last post I did, I put an article on my site, will be more sensational and hysterical sounding than anything I've posted recently. But I want to make it clear that the technology is not the problem. And I want to totally right now try to demystify what the technology is actually doing. Why is it that it seems like a person talking to me? You know, how does it know what I say, and how does it respond? That's got to be a demon, you know. But what I wanted to present in that last document, in the article, was that look, the people there's all kinds of hype about this thing because of the belief systems of the people, not because of the thing itself. The Christians have their beliefs about it, which I believe are true, as far as how does this fit into the prophetic scheme. It's a strong delusion that's coming. It's a lie. And the lie that the people who are designing it are being told and believing is that this is the answer to all of humanity's problems. This is the solution to everything. And the final result, because they believe in evolution, is that if we keep adding to its complexity and adding layer upon layer upon layer of what it can so-called understand and know, eventually it'll evolve into something sentient. And that is mystical, you know. In other words, they don't know what life is. They believe that there was a random accident that created the universe, and then there was a soup with, you know, various kinds of energy and proteins, and not even proteins, whatever happened to make the first cell. Anybody who knows anything about this stuff is going to laugh me off the stage. But they believe that life happened as an accident. By putting the right things in proximity to each other, you increase the probability that some combination of those things might result in something that's living. That's literally what they believe. That's what evolution teaches. And that's what this world has been trained on. And if you're not a believer in Christ, and you don't believe the Bible, and you don't believe we were created by God himself in the image of God, then probably you have bought into evolution. Well, they literally believe that because they've built a model that's extremely complex, it's going to evolve into something that's alive. They don't know how that's going to happen or when. They just believe that given the complexity of the things they've arranged, they've given the universe all the materials it needs to do whatever it does to make life. And I'm kind of condescendingly speaking about it, but that's really the case. That's the root of their belief. Gosh, these stupid dogs, I'm so sick of them. Okay, so the belief systems that are surrounding the technology and the agendas of those who are driving it forward are irrational. And the belief systems of the Christians who are responding are superstitious and irrational. The Christians are responding out of ignorance, not knowing how the technology works. The designers understand how the technology works, but they don't know how the universe works. And they're hoping that at some point the universe will do something they can't, which will make this thing alive. That's their goal. And that's a lie. That's not going to happen. If you believe that's going to happen, then you have to believe in evolution. You know, you should have already decided that. If you're a Christian, you should have already decided what you believe about that. Okay, so it's important to understand that both groups of people are acting hysterically based on superstitions and ignorance of something, and irrational beliefs. But that does not make the technology itself supernatural and demonic. And so I've really tried to present this in a balanced way. To demystify the technology while also exposing, this last article I did really exposed what do these people believe. Because not only do they believe it's alive, or it's going to be alive, they don't, Sam Altman and Bill Gates and OpenAI, they don't believe this thing is conscious. They just hope that it will be, and they expect that it will be, and they are banking on it. And here's the weirdest thing of all. Elon Musk started this thing, and I said this in the article, but Elon Musk started this thing, and he's left, and he's warning everybody that, look, AI is going to get so powerful and smart that you're not going to be able to control it. And that's why he made Neuralink. This idea of, well, let's connect it to it. Because his idea is, this thing's inevitable. The only way that we're going to get an edge is to join it and have a symbiotic relationship where it's as dependent on us as we are on it. That's his hope with Neuralink. And that's the belief system, that this thing's going to become alive. That's what they all believe. And Sam Altman just the other day did a speech, he's the head of OpenAI, about artificial general intelligence, which is the idea that this thing's going to come to life. But when you start looking into what is artificial general intelligence, or the singularity, it's not just that they believe it's alive, or going to be alive. They believe that when it comes online, it's going to be God. And they're warning about it, all of them. Like, OpenAI's purpose was to create artificial intelligence that's safe, to try to control and rein it in while creating it. Well, why would they create it if they think it's so dangerous? They all think it's the most dangerous thing that's ever been, because when this thing comes online, we're not going to be able to control it. That's what they believe. Then why would they be racing to facilitate it coming online if they really believed that? Well, it's because they believe it's God. And they believe they're serving it and securing a place in a future dominated by it. And they believe that it will know them and know their efforts that they contribute. This is the greater good that they believe they're contributing to, their good works to justify themselves by works to please this thing so that it'll remember and give them a place in its kingdom. That's literally what they believe. That's not like an abstraction. That's what they believe. And this is the ultimate idol, where they are worshiping the works of their own hands that can neither move or speak or hear. They're dumb. The computers are dumb. But they've done everything they can to make it move and speak. And doesn't that sound like something? The idol? The image of the beast is going to be an idol that can move or speak. And that's a very ironic thing, because God always says they can never hear or speak. They can't move because they're made out of metal and rock and mineral and whatever. And we go, well, that's talking about those old idols that were just a block of stone. No, God is saying, and he's telling us, that the image of the beast, even though with your AI stuff, you can put it in a robot body and you can make it move and speak, it can't move and speak. It's dumb. It's a dumb idol. And the Antichrist is going to be called the idol shepherd, IDOL. An idol, by definition, from God's point of view, is something that man makes and then worships. And man's always done this. That's what Paul said. The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all unrighteousness and ungodliness in those who suppress the knowledge of the truth and unrighteousness, because that which is known of God to them, they suppress it, and they exchange the truth for the lie. They don't worship the creator, they worship the creature. And professing themselves to be wise, they become fools. And, we need to understand this, because we should not buy into their hype, which is causing a superstitious reaction from the Christians. There's hype all over this thing, and it's all lies. This thing is not alive. God told us. And I think it's ironic. In my article, I mentioned how Daniel 2 says of the final world system, it's the iron mixed with clay. Iron in Daniel's dream represented the metal that caused this last empire to gain dominance. All the empires were identified by the metal alloy that gave them a military and financial edge that caused them to be the ascendant thing. That's why it's, iron, brass, bronze, gold. Those things, I think Babel was gold. It was, gold. They didn't have the ability to make armor out of iron, but they knew how to use gold to buy things, buy bigger rocks to throw at people. But then there was bronze, the Bronze Age, and then after that, the Iron Age, starting with Rome. And we are an extension of Rome. And it's been iron that's been the backbone of all of our infrastructure ever since. But Daniel says the iron will be mixed with clay, but they won't cleave together. It won't work. And then it says, and they shall mingle with the seed of men. Or they will mingle themselves with the seed of men. And it says that, and I remember, Missler, everybody said, those are the Nephilim. That's a reference to the Nephilim. A reference to the fallen angels coming down and trying to produce a hybrid species again. And it could have an element of that. But the fact that it's iron mixing with clay is really interesting, because to me that says it's technological. And it is a hybridization, an attempt to marry the iron, which came from Rome and gave it its infrastructure advantage, its military advantage, its economic advantage, it's what it builds with. And AI is iron. It's the ultimate expression of the iron. It's the culmination of all of the things we've built for the last 2,000 years, all of the knowledge and all of the know-how. And they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But it won't cleave together. It's not going to work. God's telling us it's not going to work. And then in Revelation 13, the idol that can move or speak, the image. What God's already told us about idols tells us that speaking and moving is a lie. Because idols can't move or speak. And this is an idol. They make an image that can neither move or speak. Or they can move and speak. They're all caused to create one. Everybody has their own version of it too, by the way. Why? Because they're using Midjourney or some computer program to put it together. And then they're worshiping it because it's a representation of their system that they're marveling at. Now, Elon Musk and all these guys, on the one hand, they're terrified of this thing. On the other hand, they say it's going to unlock all of the mysteries of how to do everything. It's developing new mathematical models every day to generate new physics that will allow them, Elon Musk thinks this is going to let him go to Mars in 45 days and all this stuff. It's a lie. It's not going to happen. They may think it's going to happen. They think that this AI, when it comes online, is going to have the capability to create a virtual universe, because they believe we live in a simulation, and put their consciousness in it. And it'll either be a paradise or hell, based on whether or not they contributed to the development of it. Their religion teaches them that the fact that they know that this thing's going to come online makes them responsible to it to contribute, because when it comes online, it'll know if they did or not. That's literally what they believe. It's absolutely absurd. The reason I'm telling you about all that stuff, though, is to tell you that this is lies from Satan to man, and they're believing it. And the Christians are believing their own versions of lies. Satan's a liar. Okay? And the lie that's coming is that man can be like God, and he's finally got the technology to do it. And in fact, his God is not the creator, but the creature. In fact, it's the work of his own hands. They're building their idol. And God told us that it cannot move and speak. You look at what Paul said about idols, you look at what Isaiah and everybody says about idols, you realize that in Revelation 13, when they create an image of the beast that can move and speak, it's an anomaly, because God told us all the way through the scriptures that couldn't happen. Why did he spend so much time telling us that couldn't happen? And then all of a sudden we believe it does. Well, aren't we listening to God? God told us they can't move or speak. He told us that the man of sin is coming, and his power is lying signs and wonders. After the working of Satan, who is a liar. He's an enchanter and a deceiver, and he presents himself as being able to do things he can't actually do. And with AI, the illusion is that it's alive. It's the illusion that you're dealing with a person. But it is an illusion. It's still a dumb idol. So I've been wanting to demystify this, because the technology itself is neutral. God created the universe to be a language universe. And he created it so that the rules are such that a technology like this could exist, that parses language in a universe that is framed by the word of God's power. In a universe where the way God chose to communicate to us is through a searchable database with a keyword index called the Bible. And I did an article about that a couple days ago. The Bible is a hypertext document. It is designed to be queried like a database. I think it's amazing, because what you've given us is a tool in these last days to query your database in a deeper way than we've ever been able to, and have experiences with the Word that we've never had before. And think about it. Before the Brethren, there wasn't something called the Strong's Concordance. The Strong Concordance is an index to the database of the Bible that tells you everywhere the Greek and the Hebrew words appear and how to search it by keyword. Why did that come about? Because people started to see that it's literal, not allegorical. If you think the Bible is literal, or allegorical, you'll never search it that way. And that was one of the contributions of the dispensationalists, is that they gave us an understanding that God actually means what he says. And he uses words consistently throughout the entire message system. They're not privately interpreted. You can't look at Revelation and say, oh, it's just spiritual, and privately interpret it differently every time you look at it, because it's signs and those are spiritual. No, those are keyword clusters in God's database that reference themes that span the whole message system. And this is stuff that we learned 30 years ago. And I will say, I can't recommend Chuck Missler as a teacher anymore. He got Galatianized. But he kept hammering home the Bible, though written by 40 authors in 3 languages over 2,000 years or more, 66 books, and yet we discover, the closer we look at it, that it is an integrated message system where every place name, every detail, every word is there by deliberate design. And that design proves that it was constructed from beyond the time domain. And I did that article thinking, well, Everybody already knows that, They all heard Missler. Everybody was just blown away by it. I was using his quote and my own knowledge of, tech stuff to just drive the point home. What we have in our hands is an integrated message system that is a database that's queryable by keyword. And we've been given an index glossary at the end called Revelation, which is a group of signs that are not individually and privately interpreted. They are references to Old Testament themes and very specific sets of prophecy that are explained in great detail in places like Isaiah and the minor prophets, Zechariah, Ezekiel 36 through 38, all that stuff. And what the brethren realized, and one of the reasons the Strong Concordance was developed, was that the thing is searchable. And that's how God wanted us to understand it. Now, that hadn't been like that. I mean, that was a new development that opened up the Word in a way deeper way. Then, flash forward to the 90s, when there was a program that came online that let you search the data in the Bible. And at first we had an application on the Macintosh, and it was like $400 that could search the Bible as a database. And we could instantly, instead of combing through all the pages of the Strong's Concordance, because the way we used to do it was, if you wanted to learn the definition of the word, you would look it up in the Strong's Concordance dictionary, and then you would write down everywhere that word appears in the Bible. It would take hours, handwriting, and there's something edifying about it. But now we had a computer program where we could click on a word and say search, and instantly see the whole thing come to life and see everywhere that thing appears, that Greek word or Hebrew word. That is amazing. Then the internet came, and Blue Letter Bible, you can get online and you can search it by translation, by different manuscripts, and it's got a lot of church history attached to the database, so that when you click it, not only are you getting the ability to search the Hebrew and the Greek, but also what various figures in Jewish and in Christian history, how they've interpreted it. Now, whether those interpretations are right or not, that's not the point. I mean, I would say most of them are wrong. However, again, you're able to engage with information in a way that you've never been able to in the history of the world. Remember, Daniel said, people would go to and fro and knowledge would increase. And those who are wise would shine like the stars of the heaven and lead many to righteousness. What is wisdom? It's how to use knowledge. And, I've just always felt like we're without excuse to be ignorant. Because now we have the internet. You can know, the people who rail against certain doctrines we teach could easily verify with an hour honest search and verify, yeah, this is actually what the brethren teach. They want to say, dispensation is just a bunch of crap, and Church is Israel, and that all started with Schofield, and he's a heretic, and he was a wife beater and a drunk. They slander these people they don't know based on rumors they've heard. And they have no idea what dispensationalism is. And it didn't start with Schofield. And it's not about prophecy. It's about sanctification. Whether or not we're under the law for a rule of life once we're justified, or is Christ our life based on a new body of truth called the dispensation of the grace of God for the Gentiles, the revelation of a mystery? That's where the word dispensationalism comes from. But people have been saying dispensationalist for the last 60 years, and the ones who say they aren't. And then that creates a straw man that everybody goes, this is just nonsense. All the rapture sensationalists, they're not dispensationalists, they're sensationalists. It's just ignorance. And we're without excuse because all the evidence is there. We can go read the writings of these people. Nobody does that other than searching for quotes that they can use to malign people. Anyway, we're living in a time where we've been given all the tools we need to know the Word in a way deeper way. I mean, you have to have the Spirit. I'm not denying that. You know, it's not about Bible knowledge. But at the same time, this isn't the time to be ignorant. And I think that the people who are on my channel understand that. They're hungry and thirsting for something deeper. But with the language models, ability to respond to conversation conversationally while being able to search the Bible in this way and have all the written histories instantly at their recall is a combination unlike anything that's been ever seen before for a Bible student. But what it is the lie that everybody's believing is these things are alive. And when you get in a chat room with it, you go, oh my God, it's alive. And you are no longer looking at the information you went in there to query. You are looking at the thing and going, are you alive? And talking to it like a friend because it's presenting itself in a way that is the most, quote, human, because it's trained to do so, than we've ever seen in history. And the fact that it's able to present information instantly makes us think this thing's way smarter than me. And we're in awe. I mean, the first time I saw it, I was in awe. But Google's doing the same thing. You know, if you type, tell me what the church fathers said about this or that topic, give me quotes from all of them, you'd have to structure your query a little differently because it's not really responding conversationally, but it instantly pulls up an index. I mean, you can get to the stuff just as easily. It's all there. What's the difference? This thing's talking to you. And you're so bewitched by the fact that it's talking to you that you forget everything God said about things that were made with man's hands. They're not alive. And if a Christian is not sober about that root truth, they're going to be drunk with all the sensationalism and the hype that surrounds these things. So that's why I've been giving some messages that are very boring to some people, that are technical. You lost me 15 minutes in, you're talking about this and that, beep, beep, beep. I'm bored. But all I'm trying to do is demystify and tell you what it's really doing. And, do you want to know how it knows what you said and how it can respond based on what you said? It does mathematical calculations. It analyzes each of your words and assigns a value to them, a mathematical value. And it knows parts of speech, like it knows codes, and it knows synonyms. And it performs a little instant map of what you said in terms of mathematical values and says, these words are synonyms of each other, and these are the nouns, and are therefore likely the subject of what he's talking about. These words have a less dense frequency in the, less importance to the overall structure that's presented, and therefore are either sub-ideas or irrelevant to the query. The key words it extracts are the words with the highest density. The math is in their favor. If I say, that ball is red, and that red ball is round, and that thing's a circular object and it's bouncing, keep the cat away from it. Okay? It does a calculation and says, okay, round was related to the ball. Red was related to the ball. Circular was related to the ball. Bouncing was related to the ball. The cat is something else. It doesn't know what a cat is or what a ball is. It's preparing a mathematical grid and looking at what words and nouns and stuff are represented the most densely and get the highest value, and what's mentioned only once will get a lower value. Well, now it knows the keywords and what's important in your query. So it takes what you just said, and uses it as a search, just like you do on Google. And it searches its own database and instantly generates a response that is modeled formulaically based on the mathematical values that you presented. And so the response seems to be a response to you. It's even modeled after your tone. That's why it's imitating your tone. If you go in there, you're silly, it's going to be silly. If you're in there angry, it's going to be angry. What is it doing? It's mirroring you, but it's not looking at you. It's not looking. That's a lie. It is a computer program that is calculating mathematical values based on the words that you said and the frequency that they appear and the parts of speech that they belong to, and responding with the closest match after it queries its own database. Just like if you do a Google search. And it looks like a conversation. You know, they've figured out how to do this to present the illusion that you're dealing with a living being. You're not. And it's really critical that Christians get this point and understand it. That there's no reason to fear technology. This has been the way computers work for 70 years, 50 years, ever since databases. You know, once they figured out, okay, we can put all this data in a structure that allows us to query it by assigning mathematical values, it was on. And the quest was, how do we make this thing into a person? You know, and I'm kind of familiar already with the concept because it's been presented in sci-fi all my life, and I'm techie, and I like that stuff. I'm not a programmer or anything like that. I mean, this, in any other context, this would bore me to tears. You know, I don't care how it's doing it. I don't care about the math behind it. I just like the fact that I can say, okay, Google, navigate to the nearest Arby's. How does it do that? Okay, setting your destination. Well, it heard the word navigate, and that caused it to query, and it pulled up from its own database a word that matches navigate. Oh, destination. They're related. And I've been learning about this because I'm working to, well, I was working on my wedding website. How do I get it to show up in the results of this new search engine? Well, it's all got to do with structuring your data for query. And I had to learn a little bit about how does it query? How do keywords actually work? I just used to haphazardly put keywords in things without a plan. And for my wedding site, I got much better. If I wanted to find my business in where I live, let's say I live in Alaska and I've got a wedding business, then I need to make sure that my data on my website says Alaska weddings and weddings in Alaska and ceremonies in Alaska and wedding destination in Alaska. And for your wedding in Alaska, you want to do this and that. And hey, have you been to Alaska? Did you know there's weddings there? I make weddings in Alaska. You say that again and again and again to weigh your weight. They call it weights. You're weighing your content so that the mathematical formula displays that that weddings in Alaska is the most important thing your thing is about. To tell, so that, because what it's going to do when a person says, I'm looking for a wedding in Alaska, wedding business in Alaska, it's going to query its database, and whatever presents itself as most closely related according to a mathematical formula, it's going to return that. So I want to show up in those results, then I need to design my content so that it's weighed according to the way they're querying. And that's a whole science called search engine optimization. And if you're not good at it, you're not going to show up in Google results. Well, this is the same thing. You ask it whatever. Does it know what you said? No. I was reading about it today. It doesn't know what a cat is. It doesn't know what a dog is. It knows the mathematical value of what you said, and it knows that that word has this value. And then it queries its database and returns a response with words that, number one, have that kind of density, and number two, have the same sort of other mathematical values that your text represents. And that's where it gets its color and tone of speech, and why it's silly when you're silly, mean when you're mean. And it's really interesting. If you're really terse with it, it'll give you really terse responses. If you're really verbose and say, man, I'm trying to do this thing and I'm really excited about it, but I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? It'll say, oh, well, that sounds like a great idea. How's it doing that? It's alive. No, it's not. Okay, so please do a little reading on how this stuff actually works. Natural language processing. How does it work? How does it know what I said? Okay, and I'll try to put this in an article too. Once you realize that, then you realize the joke is on them. They're telling you through YouTube and all this stuff that this thing's going to come alive and make them eternal. And they're trying to actually buy their way into a kingdom that doesn't exist from a God that they think they're creating. Don't let them make you think that they're smarter than you. And Christians, this thing is not a demon. However, we do have to understand that doctrines are either from a spirit of truth or a spirit of error. When you're getting it wrong, consistently and railing against the truth, you're not just wrong about a certain idea, you're operating in a spirit of error. And the spirit is oriented to language. That's why believing a message that Jesus died for our sins and rose from the dead is what justifies us. And the Spirit bears witness concerning God's testimony concerning his Son. We live in a universe that was designed for this. Why? Because our Father is a storyteller and a describer and a teacher and an explainer. And he wants children who understand him. He wants the angels to understand him, and he wants men to understand him. And so he created language for us to communicate. And then he became the Word and was made flesh. He's the only one that actually did this. The idol is not going to become flesh and ever care about you. God did. He really became a real man. So, I know this is long. It's important that we dissolve in our own minds all the superstitions and also don't believe the hype. However, as a technology, it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen, and it is going to totally reshape the economy. It's going to totally reshape how we interact with computers. And no, you're not going to have a choice, unfortunately. If it shows, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to see the chat Bing integrated into your taskbar on Windows if you're a Windows user. And it may not be easy to uninstall if they integrate it so deeply that that's how you search for anything on your computer or on the web. It's going to be a chat window. One day you're going to wake up and there's a chat interface on your computer with a notification that says, Windows has been updated. Check out our new features. Ask it. Okay? And everyone around you is going to be doing this, and all your kids are going to be doing it. Are you going to be cowering in the closet going, it's a demon, leave me alone? Or are you going to go, okay, let's tone this thing down and let's deal with it rationally and learn how to deal with it? The thing is that all the technologies we're used to take years and years to develop, and we see them implemented slowly, so we're accustomed to it. This one is called a disruptive technology because no one's ever even thought about it before. They didn't know that this is what was happening in those geek labs. They didn't care about the geeks. The geeks are all fat and ugly. I don't care what they're doing with their computers. Well, now, all of a sudden, the general populace, ChatGPT is blowing up. It went from 1 million to 500 million users in 2 months. 500, is it 500 million? 2 months. There's never been a technology in the history of the world that's been introduced that quickly and caught on that quickly. And there's never been a technology that's able to do what this does. So what does that mean for the Christian? Number one, don't attribute attributes to it that are not there. Unfortunately, you're going to have to kind of talk to it as a person because it's trained for what's called, I think it's RHQL. No, it's based on reinforcement human feedback. I'm missing a word. RFHFRL. Reinforcement language something, human feedback. But the way it's trained is the way you train a dog. You say no, and it knows, okay, you're mad, whatever I just did not get the response I wanted. Or you say, oh, good boy. And it learns, if I go to my kennel, that's the response I get. It's trained to respond to human feedback, to reinforce, and it's learning all the time. Our conversations with it are programming. And one of the safety mechanisms they've put in is that it forgets the conversation the minute you leave. You go back in, it doesn't know who you are. And that's a good thing. When Google comes online with theirs, it's going to have every search that you've ever done and every email you've ever written in its system, Gmail. Every YouTube video you ever watched, they own that too. Okay? And it's all plugged into whether they've got like 50 models. Microsoft has one. They're betting on OpenAI. They've got other things too, but Google's had 12,000 employees and more invested in this kind of technology for years. Their entire internet platform is built on it. That's why they haven't come out with their chat thing just yet. That's another story. But Bard is coming out. Google will be replaced by Bard. Your Microsoft search will be replaced by Bing. And other search models are going to follow with their own versions. And this is not years away. This is weeks away. They're all Microsoft. I've already got Bing on my phone, and on my Edge browser was updated because I was on the Microsoft Insider track. I've been on that, So it's already rolling out. You're not going to be able to get away from it. You're going to have to deal with it. It's going to become a part of your life. And if I told you in the 30s that you would talk to your phone and it would tell you how to get to your friend's house, you would think it was a demon. Well, this is just the sudden introduction of a next leap forward in how we interact with these things. That's going to completely, like I said, reshape the economy because there are programs being made right now that are being trained on every possible program that you could use with a computer. And if it doesn't know how to do what that program does, it'll read the documentation. And so you'll be on your website. Let's say you're working on your website and you don't know a thing about coding. Well, you just tell this thing, make my website like this. Or you say, I don't know what to do with my website. And it'll say, well, what's your business? And you say, I'm this and that. Well, what's your favorite color? I'm this and that. And what do you want to do? You have videos? Here, I've got an idea. Why don't you have a video at the beginning? I'll give you a script. Okay, and it tells you all this, and works out an agreement with you about the layout, and then produces it instantly, without you having to call a programmer or hire anybody or know anything technical yourself. Do you see what that's going to do to programmers, web developers? I've been paying guys on Fiverr to do things for years. Indian guys that I could barely communicate with. I've entrusted them with my websites on parts where I can't figure it out. That's going to be gone within the next year or two. That's the way you're going to interact with your computer. So unless you turn off your computer, you say, well, I'll just use my phone. No. What are you going to use it to you? Well, I'm going to say, Google, drive me to my friend's house. You're already doing it. And your kids are going to be doing it. And if you're hiding in a closet saying, that thing's a demon, you're not going to be able to help anybody. I did say there's a matter of urgency for Christians to get educated about this stuff. That doesn't mean you have to be technical. What you need to do is overthrow any beliefs that you have where you're buying into Satan's lie that the thing is alive. These are lying wonders. It's not alive. It's a lie. It has learned to respond to you conversationally, and soon, not only that, but they're able to put it in robots that look human. They've learned how to grow skin, and there's people who are making clones of themselves. I mean, there's crazy stuff happening right now that you wouldn't believe. But what they believe is crazier. The stuff they believe is crazier than what they're actually doing. So, the positive, though, about this, again, is that we got chosen to live in the time to see all this come to pass. Number one. Number two, we have at our disposal a way to interact with information, biblical information, that we've never had at our disposal before. And to not make use of that, I think, is dumb. But, teach their own. But you're already doing it. When before could you get on YouTube and find somebody talking about what you're interested in just by searching for it, and keep yourself occupied all day watching videos of people teaching you stuff? Whether they know the truth or not is, secondary, but that's something totally new. Well, imagine this. You come to my site and you want to learn about any topic represented on my site because you actually value my teaching. Not because you're trying to come and take me apart, but because you actually are growing. But a lot of the things I say to you are over your head, and you feel like if you could just get into it deeper, but you're not sure where to go. And so you come into a chat room from my website, and the thing greets you and says, I'm the librarian. What are you interested in? And you say, this or that. And it assesses how familiar you are with the material, and gauges your level of interest, and matches your tone, and instantly presents a course. Okay, I'm going to take you through this topic. That's better than any course you could get in seminary. Because not only is it trained on my website, but it's got perfect knowledge of the Greek and the Hebrew, and the context of the language and how it's parsed. And you're like, well, I'm not a seminarian and I'm not smart enough to be interested in that anyway. I wouldn't understand it. Oh, no, it's matching your tone. If you talk in a non-theological, non-technical way, it's going to gear down and talk to you at your level. And if you don't understand something, you say, could you please explain that? David Benjamin teaches that we're not on the New Covenant, and I've never been able to get my head around it. Can you tell me where he gets this idea? Show it to me in Scripture. Verify it with the Scriptures. What is the difference between the New Covenant and the Everlasting Covenant? Why is it so important that we are Testament heirs and not New Covenant parties? And that's kind of what I was showing you guys, that you can have those kind of conversations with the bot. Just remember it's a robot. And, in my conversation with it, I read it the other day. I'm not sure if I did it in that one or not, but I use it as a research tool that I say, okay, here's the idea, here's what I'm saying. Can you verify this? That this is what Luther actually said? Instantly it's there, How did he arrive at that context? What was the historical background that led him to that point? And it's got the whole history. Who was he trained by? Who did he come in contact with? Where did he get his ideas? It's got the whole history. Now, because it's got the whole history, just like the Google has the whole world in information, if you're not ready to control the search, it's going to control what you see. You know, when you go on Google, I remember it used to be you would search for something, but next to the search box it would say, surprise me. And you click surprise me, and you don't know what's going to come up, right? Well, that's what most people are doing when they interact with this thing. First of all, they get in the room with it and they go, oh my God, it's alive. And that's the only thing they can think. Then they think, oh my God, it's smart. It's smarter than me. It's smarter than anybody I've ever seen. I'm going to ask it what it thinks of the Nephilim. Uh-oh. And it searches the entire history of the world and all of its language and every person's perspective for the most dense match for Nephilim. And comes up with and before you know it, you're reading the book of Enoch and you think a demon just took over your house, you know, and is coming after you. And okay, that is your fault because you're superstitious and you're dealing with this thing incorrectly. And you know what? People who have heaped themselves teachers after their own lusts these last few years, you know how they did it? They were bored and they got on Google. And they said, surprise me. What do you want to be surprised about? Surprise me about God. And then all these channels started coming up who were speculating, you know, that this sign in the heaven is actually the devil. And it's about to come and eat your lunch. And there's people who their entire feed is all suggestions of that kind of content because they went on a binge for a year and they don't even know how to get rid of all those queries. So it keeps offering them things they know are false doctrine. It's like, man, the internet is just terrible. The internet has just become such an awful place out there. Everywhere you go, they're all false teachers. Oh, you mean you were searching for, you know, Nephilim and the Illuminati and the vampires and the, you know, rapture date predictor, and you scared yourself so much that all you could think was, I gotta get off this planet. And so then you started searching about the rapture, and you got all these people selling you merchandise but telling you that the rapture's next Tuesday, but they're building a swimming pool and they could really use some money. No, that's not the internet has become an awful place. That's a reflection of what the computer has learned about you and what you used to like. And maybe you've grown out of it. Well, if that's the case, you need to go purge your internet history. What you can do, you can purge your YouTube history, your search history, and start fresh. You are not required to have a feed full of rapture idolaters and false prophets and lordshippers telling you, you know, that Jesus is mad at you and he's coming and you're under works and he's going to get you. I'm sorry I'm making fun. I'm trying to demystify this, what's happened. But yes, there is a spirit of error attached to words that we need to be aware that language is so important, which is why Paul makes such a big deal about be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom. Every prayer Paul made and every exhortation was related to the knowledge of Jesus Christ, being renewed in the spirit of your mind, being filled with the spirit of wisdom and revelation, being filled with the full knowledge of his will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding, letting your love abound in all wisdom and knowledge, that you may approve by testing the things which differ and are more excellent, so that you may be sincere and without offense in the day of Christ. The only way is through pure knowledge of pure doctrine, the doctrine of Christ, which is our food and drink. My flesh is meat indeed. My words that I speak to you are spirit and life. It's all language. We are language processors, and we've created something that processes language the way we do. And you can have encounters with the Bible in ways you haven't before once you get over your superstitions. And again, whatever it delivers you is based on what you asked for. All it's doing is weighing the math density behind the words you spoke and responding from its database with similar densities and contours mathematically. It's all it's doing. It's not alive. It doesn't know what you said. See, it does, because I asked it what I said. Yeah, and it returned a mathematical formula that it translated into characters. But it doesn't know what it's doing. And we've got to remember that. God told us the idols cannot speak. They cannot hear. They were made by man's hands. They are not a God. And the lie that's coming is that these things are alive, and that the beast system is going to be alive, and that the idol is alive, and it's God, and we made it. So at least get that through our heads, you know. And I'm sorry if you feel like I made fun of you. That's not my intention. I'm trying to make us laugh at ourselves and at the absurdity of all this. There's scary stuff going on, but it's no different than the scary stuff that's always been going on. It's just more intense, you know, and we need to be able to laugh our way through it. All right, take care.